What is going on, guys? Matt Downs with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports to help give you the edge for this MMA 15 fight slate. Cannot wait to break it down. If you guys are brand new to this channel, we provide both free and paid content for all daily fantasy sports across all sports. If you could please show your support by hitting that subscribe button, notification bell, and of course smashing that like button for all of our future MMA content. If you would like to know more about becoming a better DFS player and taking down that big GPP, head over to www.patreon.com/DGFantasy for more information. On Patreon, we give advanced cheat sheets for all DFS sports on DraftKings. These cheat sheets include updated projections, ownership, and our overall favorite plays from slate to slate. We take it a step further by teaching you how to play fantasy sports like a shark, by showing you where the best leverage spots are to put you in the best spots to take down tourneys. Also included is our private Discord chat where you get to talk over the slate with everyone, including our coaches, to help build your lineups. And now let's dive right into this MMA 15 fight slate. We have such a big slate. And guys, I've been looking forward to this. I actually was talking about this before. I think this was last week when I was talking about this, Kevin. I've grown a fan of watching Adesanya, and I cannot wait to see this fight. So I'm assuming you feel the same way, Kevin.
100%.
Yep. And I think we're ready to talk about the slate. But first, let's go ahead and recap last week's slate.
Yep, 100%. And I'll tell you, man, Adesanya is actually probably my favorite fighter who is a non-wrestler.
Okay.
I will say that he has no wrestling at all, and he's probably my favorite fighter that is, you know, I would consider a pure striker. So yeah, he's lights out. But we'll get to that. Yeah, let's recap UFC Fight Night: Rozenstruik versus Gane. UFC's been good to us, Matt. It always is. You know that. MMA has been an awesome sport for us. Having some great success lately. Our Patreons have been having some great success lately. But of course, you know, all good things must come to an end, and we need a little bit of a hiccup. Last week was definitely a down week for us. One of those hiccups especially by our usual MMA standards. But that being said, it was probably the weirdest night I've ever seen. It was just really weird, but I could be wrong, Matt. You have the optimal there. I believe a fighter who was in a draw made the optimal. Is that correct?
Actually, let me double check that because I accidentally clicked on the showdown slate. So let me. Okay, in the draw, who are you referring to?
I want to say it was Silva or Mayra Bueno Silva.
No, did not make the optimal.
Okay, then she was just number one in the contest I was in. Okay, what was the optimal?
So the optimal was Magomed Gain, or it's Cyril Gain, Lawrence, Munoz or Munoz, De La Rosa, and then Alexis Davis. Sorry, I cannot read this morning.
Yep. Wait, Montana De La Rosa.
Yep, made it at 78.
What'd she score?
Got 58.96.
Okay, so maybe I just had the wrong fighter. She was in a draw. So she was
she was the one that was in a draw.
Yep.
How do you make all right, so that just goes to show you. So the optimal was obviously it's out of $50,000 and the optimal was 49.9. So it got really close to the optimal, and that's the reason that low of a score made it in.
Yep. So I thought it was
like a puzzle.
Bueno Silva on the other side who made the optimal, but no, it was Montana. But yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, it was just that kind of night, man.
Yeah.
I mean, have we ever seen a draw make the optimal?
Nope.
I mean, essentially,
I've never seen it.
A loss has never made the optimal, and that's a loss. You scored the same as a loss. You didn't get your win bonus. So, yeah, I mean, if they raise the hand for, you know, Silva, which they could have, it's a draw. Still, same thing.
It just goes to show you small slates. So, how many fights ended up happening? It was only 9,
I think it ended
right?
up being 9.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, think of it as a 9-fight slate, which is some crazy things can happen in a 9-fight slate.
Especially, yeah, I feel like the judges were a little off too. And I'll tell you right now, right off the rip, the first fight was we had a lot of that fight, which was Grishin and Jacoby, and I knew that was gonna be a weird night off the rip. But Grishin got robbed. I think he would have made the optimal at 7,700 easily, especially with that win bonus. But he scored, you know, pretty close to what Jacoby won with the win bonus, and he outstruck him. Scored 2 knockdowns to his 0. There was 0 takedowns in the fight, so it was kind of weird that he didn't get the call and the refs didn't say he won. But I mean the judges, but it was weird. I know a lot of people in Discord were freaking out because of that, and I was too. Can't trust UFC judges, man. But anyway, Jacoby won. Unfortunately, he scored pretty terrible at his price tag because of it. Now moving on to the next fight, which was Ronnie Lawrence. I did say he was live. I gave him a very green note that night, and thank goodness I did, because he ended up absolutely smoking the slate. He was the highest scorer, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, he was.
Ronnie Lawrence, yeah. He ran a takedown clinic. He just looked awesome.
That was by far the highest score.
Yeah, he looked lights out. So if you didn't have him, obviously you got absolutely dusted on such a small, crappy slate. But I had 2 lines, I think, with Alexis Davis in it. I went way too heavy on my girl there, and yeah, Alexis Davis. She didn't make optimal, did she?
She did. She was the
Oh,
last.
she did. Okay.
She was the last one to make the optimal. Yep,
that.
96.
Okay, cool. Okay, I was gonna say, how did she not at that price tag? Okay, yeah, yeah. It's just, it is what it is. I think a lot of people were counting her out. I did say she was live because of her submission ability, and she did, completely, absolutely out grapple. But she absolutely out grappled her. Absolutely took her down, ran a clinic on her, and obviously I think she was 7,300, right? Something like that. Was Davis?
Davis was 7,300 bucks. Yep.
Yep. So obviously you're gonna make optimal on a crappy slate, especially you'll make it probably most slates. But I will say, I did say Munoz was live. Munoz was a very live fight, and I liked him, and to fade Rivera as the favorite. That was big for us because Munoz did really well. And you just said he made the optimal, and that was my reasoning. I didn't think necessarily he was going to win, but I knew if he did, he would make the optimal. Rivera, I still think, Matt, Rivera is scored so poorly. I still don't know if he would have made the optimal.
No, he was horrible
on that crappy of a slate. He does not score well ever.
Yeah.
So, I said Moises was live, and he won, which is good. Moises didn't make the optimal.
Moises did not make the optimal. Correct. Yep.
Okay, that's interesting.
51.
What did he score?
51.
Yeah, that's how bad he scores without a submission. But he did. That's funny because he pulled the upset as a pretty heavy underdog. I remember, I think he was like, what, $7,500 pricing, and Hernandez was
75. Yep.
Like yeah, so that's pretty crazy that he didn't make the optimal. But I mean, that's how badly he does when he wins. Who else we got here? We got Magomed, we talked about. He won. Didn't dominate till really later rounds. Didn't hit his price point, but on that slate still made the optimal. Gon was one of the only people who I think like did okay for his price point. Didn't get the knockout, but it was five rounds of him just picking Rosenstruck apart. I was kind of unimpressed with Rosenstruck's tenacity to get in there and swing and try to finish the fight. He lost all 5 rounds pretty handily, so that was kind of weird. And I feel like I'm missing a fight. Oh yeah, Caceres and Kroom. That one was just a little less high octane than I thought it would be. And yeah, it was a weird night, Matt.
So in terms of like the your calls, Kevin, we had, well, first of all, both red lighters was Yoder and Hill, where they were called off. So that's, you got rid of that. Rivera was your only other red light, and he was all the way down there, and then the rest were green lights at the top and a couple yellow lights. So I mean, overall, there's 2 yellow lights near the bottom too. So overall, your calls were fantastic. So I just think in terms of what we expected to happen on the slate didn't happen. That being Lawrence putting up 134, and then nobody even being relatively close to that score. We did not expect. But I think other than that, I mean, in terms of your calls, I'm looking. I have the results right in front of me. You actually did pretty good. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's just, I mean, we have a high standard here, and the fact I didn't have enough Alexis Davis and
or Lawrence apparently.
Yeah, I had a good amount of Lawrence. I just wish I went 100% exposure, obviously, because
woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
Woulda, coulda, shoulda, exactly. But we'll have a good night here. It's
we love big slates too.
I'll tell you, we crush big slates, and I will say it's a rare occasion when, from a a fan aspect and a fan standpoint, Matt, where I would say any one of the 8 fights from the top could justifiably be a main event. That's how deep this card is. It's an amazing card.
Yeah, I'll be watching this at the bar for sure.
This is ridiculous. This is much CTV, much watch TV, whatever it's called. I just think this is going to be absolutely lights out. It's in my opinion the best card in probably close to a year. I remember at the pre-fight press conference, whatever it was, they're asking Dana, they're like, it's only March. Are you ready to call this like the best card of the year? And he was like, I mean, it's up to you guys, essentially. Like, you kind of want it deflected, but it is. I think it is. I don't think they're going to top this all year.
When I recognize names on the card, that's how you know it's a good card.
That's how you know it's good. We're getting the casual love. But I will say that being said, this is one of the hardest cards I've seen in recent memory, Matt. One of the hardest by far. It's tough to make the right picks on. I'm still obviously going to give you guys the fights that I think are great, good, neutral, bad, and terrible as always. But I think this card offers a lot of challenges. Many challenges.
I can tell by the ownership spread. It's spread out immensely. So let's go ahead and start going over this, Kevin.
Yep, 100%. Getting into the first fight, and I'll say this, Matt, too. There's a ton of mid-level pricing that's going to be like that. You like to see a couple. You don't like to see all. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, we'll get into it. Mario Batista versus Trevin Jones. Batista is a monster, not someone to sleep on. He's 8-1 as a pro, 2-1 in the UFC, and with his sole loss coming to Corey Sandhagen, that doesn't really mean much to me. He throws a stupid amount of volume, and on a night without 3 championship fights, I would easily throw him in my GPP list for sure. But again, we do have 3 championship fights to compete with, so got to limit the love list somewhere. I can't throw everyone on there, but he's going to be as green as people get. You know, any other time he'd be on that list, and you know, you could, if you want to still throw him on a love list, that's fine. I think he can clear 9.1K even in a decision just because of his stupid volume. Like I said, Trevin Jones is okay. I'm not looking his way a ton, but I mean, he's definitely live. He's got great submissions, and that isn't out of the realm of possibility. So why don't you mark Trevin Jones yellow?
Trevin Jones yellow, Batista green.
Yeah, I'm buying in the Batista hype a little bit.
Okay.
I will say I'm buying in a little bit.
All right, guys, you love to hear the benchmark. We're going all the way down here in terms of a benchmark percentage to 26.5% for any of you new viewers here. Anything above that is a cash play. Anything below 26.5 is going to be a GPP play. We just take the top 6, and we assume that's going to be, you know, the optimal build. It's not usually, but, you know, it gives us some sort of benchmark. So benchmark ownership percentage 26.5. That being said, Kevin, Batista's at 24.8, so right in that cusp, but definitely more of a GPP option. And Trevin Jones only 9.3% ownership. Do you think he has any chance to make the optimal even if he wins?
Trevin or Batista? Batista.
Trevin, sorry.
I mean, Trevin wins. I think he absolutely could at 7.1K. Batista, I think he still could very easily at 9.1 because of like I said, his volume. It's going to be tough to compete with some of these guys, especially where, like, if he puts it on him for 3 rounds, he's going to have such a pace. Say him and Izzy don't finish, and they're about the same price tag. Him and Izzy both don't finish. Yeah, he's going to have to think of how much more active he's going to have to be in 3 rounds.
Absolutely.
Compared to 5.
No, I get the point. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's still very live, and who's to say they both can't make it? You know. So
absolutely,
so like him and Izzy, not him and Trevin Jones.
I was about to say, I don't think there's any stacking on this card. I hate to break it to you. Yeah.
But moving on, we got Medic versus Cruz. Great target here. I think Medic will make my love list. He's 6-0, 6 finishes. I mean, that just screams GPP. Cruz can definitely be finished as well. Cruz does have some potential as a punt. I mean, I'll throw a yellow on him just because Medic hasn't really beaten anybody worth mentioning. So 6-0 could be a little bit of a facade or misleading. We don't know. We've never really seen him. So big finish chance on this one, Matt. We got a -225, so I do think a lot of love on this one. And I think that is, I will say, just looking at like how the finishability of Medic and Cruz, I think the -225 is a little bit more skewed on the fact that Medic is a favorite, and they expect him to finish more so than Cruz.
Got it. Okay. So that being said, these guys are both GPP territory, 25.6 on Medic and Cruz at a 10.8% ownership, Kevin. So are you tagging both these guys as green? You said Cruz is going to be yellow, correct?
Yeah, mark him yellow. I mean, he's still going up against an undefeated fighter who's, you know, a good finisher. Cruz has been finished a couple times to the point where I get a little nervous about it, but he's live. He's definitely live. I mean, again, that could be a little bit of a facade. We could see Medic get, like, you know, come in here like so many before him who are undefeated, 6-0, 6 finishes, and just get deleted. So.
All right, moving on.
We got Souza versus Lemos. It's interesting. These girls have some pretty damn solid records, and they're pretty damn solid finishers as well. I love the contrast of styles here. I think this fight could easily end in a finish because of it. Souza is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, has 8 submission wins in her career, very good grappler. Amanda, on the other hand, has big power. Most of her fights, you know, end by way of knockout. So, you know, we got a striker versus a grappler, classic matchup. I think both sides are green, Matt, and live. I will say the Vegas line is a little bit perplexing. Yep.
I've never heard you start out. Let me just throw this out here. I've never heard you start with 2 guys fights, and then the next one was a green lighted girl fight over the last 2 that we just talked about, which is you'll love to hear the ownership then. But go ahead.
Yeah, double green. I just think there's such a path to victory for both girls here. Even with the favorites being, I mean, you look at like Medic and Cruz, like we talked about. Vegas is giving similar, I don't want to say similar lines. Oh, that was something else I wanted to mention too. Like you look at Lemos's price, she's 8,700, Matt. Okay, 8,700. And what's the most recent line you have on her?
She is minus 208.
208. Okay,
Yep.
so that's actually a little bit of a drop. It's rolling a little more in the direction of Souza, but that is still crazy. So that's a minus 208. Okay.
Which in percentage wise is going to be a 68% chance.
Yep, to win.
Yep.
Okay. So that's not that far off of. Let's look down the line here. We got Sean Brady coming up next. Sean Brady's minus 225. Pretty close, right? He's sure. $9,300. $9,300.
Doesn't make sense there.
So if you like that, I mean, you're into the line. But again, I just love the contrast here that like Souza could absolutely get this to the ground, and she has a huge distinct advantage there. So I will say the Vegas line's a little bit perplexing for me. I think this could be close, but what's the ownership looking like here? I feel like
ownership is criminal, at least according to what you just said, Kevin. 9.8% on Lemos and Souza 2.8. So those are the lowest by far, and that's the lowest combined ownership in a single fight throughout the entire card.
That has such a chance to break the slate. I mean, you got to think. So just a couple scenarios here. Okay. Lemos keeps it standing. Souza can't bring her down. She knocks her out. Awesome. She doesn't knock her out. She lights her up the entire time on her feet. Okay. And especially with the regular striking scoring now and not significant striking scoring, lights her up on her feet. Okay. She's $8,700. Absolutely can make the optimal in a decision with that. She's also minus 235, so should. This also has a decent finish chance for a girls fight, plus 180. That's actually pretty good. Most girls fights start, I feel like the benchmark is around plus 255. Right. Now, another scenario. Souza doesn't get the finish at 7,500. Doesn't get the finish. But she takes her down, runs a takedown clinic on her, or a grappling clinic, just stays on top of her, starts pounding her head in a little bit, scores 90, 95 points, something, another day in the office. She's $7,500. Absolutely can make the optimal. You know what I mean? Even on a 15-fight slate. I mean, we watched 9 fights basically go completely wrong last week. You know what I mean? There's absolutely a chance that 95 points could make the optimal here at $7,500.
And again, we're talking about the exact optimal. We're talking about the highest scoring possible combination. That's not always the optimal in some of the contests that you play. Kevin, you saw that one time when you were second place and they didn't even have all 6 winners in their lineup. So when we refer to the actual optimal, we're referring to the highest possible combination that you can score, and that usually doesn't happen unless you're entering a 50,000 plus person contest where they can max enter 150 lineup. So to your point, yes, Souza could easily be upset and then easily make the optimal whatever contest you're in. Absolutely, at 2.8% makes no and you gotta
remember pricing, Matt, especially on this one, so big. Like her scoring, like I said, Souza scoring 95 points at $7,500 is so much more valuable than Amanda Nunes scoring $120. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because remember
you're jumping way ahead, but yeah.
I know. I'm just saying, like, if we had who was it? That one of our Patreons won, $50 grand off that big MMA slate. He faded the main event, and I think who was it? Kobe Covington scored like $110, but someone who scored like 92 was in the optimal because of pricing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And he wasn't at 18 points more. So it's that's why you got to look at it. Pricing's huge. But yeah, moving on, we got Sean Brady versus Jake Matthews. I think Brady's a good fighter. I just also think Matthews is a good fighter. So this line's a little interesting to me. I don't know what to do here, Matt. This one's tough. My gut says Brady doesn't make the optimal at 9,300. That's a lot of money. Still has a plus 145 finish chance. That's pretty bad.
Wow, that is very bad.
Yeah, that's not good. He's green. I just don't know how green. Part of my concern is, like I said, Jake Matthews, I think is a pretty good fighter. I have a pretty high respect for that kid. He isn't the best finisher, but I mean, he's a damn good winner too. He's 10-4. That's 14 fights in the UFC. 10-4 in the UFC.
It's a pretty good record.
Pretty damn good record. And 17-4 overall. So it was 7-0 before that. Brady's been great, but I think this is his toughest test yet, and I really don't know what happens here. I guess both are green. I'm going to keep a closer eye on this one, closer to lock, especially if some of the other fights get canceled, which unfortunately it'll probably happen. It's 15 fights. Someone will get COVID or something. So
Sean Brady, if he does finish, you think he will make optimal, or he could potentially make optimal at 93? Okay.
He could. I mean, I mean, I got to say 93, even on a 15-fight slate. I mean, him, Amanda Nunes, not as much as I guess as Amanda Nunes, because she's in a 5-rounder, but still, even her, everyone at that price tag in a 15-fight slate, I don't care who you are, you're up against the wall. You know what I mean? You have a tough road ahead to hit your optimal at that pricing on a 15-fight slate, because some idiot random Kai Kara France at 8,500. Sorry, Kai, not to call you an idiot, but some random person at 8,500 could just put a clinic on, score $120, and it doesn't matter who you are, what your price tag is, how dominant you are. You know what I mean?
You're the top. So, you're the top 6 scorer. You're gonna make the optimal period. All right. I don't want to jump too far ahead, Kevin, but one thing I've noticed in terms of ownership is I just keep going back to the ownership. The first 8 fights, I'm not kidding, none of these make the benchmark percentage in terms of a core/cash option.
And what did I tell you, Matt?
Exactly. I was about to say
that's weird. The top 8 fights. What did I say? The top 8 fights are all main event worthy.
Exactly. And it just leads me to believe that so many casuals are going to be watching this. Not only that, Kevin, we didn't even talk about the NBA All-Star break going on right now. So many casuals are going to be coming from NBA. This is just a huge card. By the way, I don't know if MMA did that. They had to have done that on purpose. Schedule this thing when there's no sports going on. So many new people are going to be flooding into these contests. And because of that, look to these back 8 fights, Kevin, for low ownership. That being said, Matthews 18.5% ownership and Sean Brady 18.4%. So it is split, like dead even here in terms of ownership. So a lot of people seem to be buying into Jake Matthews, just like yourself, Kevin, at $6,900.
Yeah, that surprises me. That shows actually almost a lack of casual knowledge. Like, you're gonna tell me that many people are on to Jake Matthews?
Again, it's still low though relative. That's what my whole point is. It's so low relative to the rest of the card. Absolutely,
100%. I just think that's so funny that that many people know about Jake Matthews at that. I mean, that's a pretty heavy underdog at 6,900, but for that many people to think he's live, that's interesting.
If you guys want some premium content, I can tell you right now, Sean Brady is going to show some very good leverage at 9,300. Just saying.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Ton. But yeah, that's interesting, Matt. That's funny that's it seems the ownership seems to be playing out exactly how we kind of predicted.
Exactly. Yep.
But moving on, we got Kennedy versus Carlos.
I'm glad you didn't try to pronounce that last name. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No,
we're going by first name basis here real quick.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. My goodness, though. I mean, speaking of what the hell do we do here? We have a 9K fighter, okay? A minus 250 favorite in Carlos Ulberg. Minus 250 favorite.
Okay.
With 3 professional fights.
Okay.
3. He's 3-0, but 3.
Okay.
What am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not really much. Are they against anybody good?
Exactly. There's such a small sample size. I mean, he has some good striking from what I've seen, good kickboxing, but we haven't seen much. I mean, what do we do with that? I mean, I've seen a lot more of Kennedy. Still pretty green, but he has power, prefers to stand and bang too, so I see a lot of potential here. I'm gonna have to green light this fight. I think I'm gonna put Ulberg in my GPP plays and Kennedy in my punts.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, I gotta. There's just a lot of knockout potential here. So obviously high scoring potential. I mean, especially with that new. I mean, you have to treat like they're trying to balance this. I mean, with that first early or that quick finish bonus. I mean, if you have 2 guys who hit really hard, that quick finish bonus, granted, it's less likely to happen than to happen. But that being said, they're trying to balance out that new striking scoring they've gotten. So knockout artists still have a lot more upside. You know what I mean? You got to think one of the guys comes out and starches in the first minute. That's, what is that, 120 points off the rip guaranteed. I think no matter what happens, if you walk out and punch him and knock him out 1 punch and have nothing else, I think it's like baseline 110, 120 points or something. Yeah. So yeah, that's the, the power of, big hitters, and these guys are both big hitters. So I don't know. It's just tough. What the friggin' hell do you do with a 3-fight, a 3-fight minus
sample size? Yeah. The pricing though is low on Carlos. That's the one thing I do like, comparing him to the other top shots that we. No, I'm actually just talking about the salary, because you compare him to the other fighters that we were talking about. Yeah, it's relatively cheap, right? $9,000.
Yeah, 93. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Kennedy is very, very cheap. So 25.3% ownership on Carlos, and Kennedy 7.1. So both GPP territory. You already know that, because all these are going to be below the benchmark. So
I have no problem taking a lot of Kennedy and just hoping.
Yeah. I mean, they're giving him a 30% chance. So
yeah, I was gonna say, how are you gonna tell me a guy who's 3-0, carries that much clout? I'm sorry,
for sure.
It's just not enough. We've seen it so many times. But yeah, that's interesting. Moving on, we got Tim Elliott versus Jordan Espinoza. What a crapshoot. I mean, I hate this fight. I just hope it isn't one of those stupid ones that makes the optimal. With the pricing, it very well could be. This is what I'm talking about, Matt, this middle range. This is one of my least favorite fights. I just don't trust either of these guys at all. Elliott has good wrestling, good fight IQ for the most part, but usually ends up it's funny, he has good fight IQ for like 90% of the fight, and then he like runs right into a submission. It's like, dude, what the hell are you doing?
I remember this, actually. I remember calling Tim Elliott very volatile, and you were like, yeah, he's going to be cash viable because of ownership, but I don't trust him, and sure enough.
Yep, he gets subbed. Like, dude, it's just like he's got good wrestling and he's got good grappling, so he has to go to the well when he fights, but that's where he gets caught. I mean, he'll hit a double, he'll get tired, get a sloppy double, you know, doesn't get his body outside, ends up in full guard with his guillotine on him, and bang, then he's done. So it's just like I don't know, it's annoying, but because I do like him, I'm a Tim Elliott fan. But Espinoza has been less than impressive in his UFC stint and has had some submission woes as well. So I could see both making the optimal very easily. Either one of these guys could submit each other. Either one of these guys could put it on each other. This is the start of a 3 fight in a row, I think, flyweight like stint of 3 fights in a row, which flyweight are typically not the best scores because they don't finish.
For sure.
But again, they do have good cardio, so they can keep good pace, and they usually have higher volume. You know, sometimes you'll see 2 of these guys, it's like 2 squirrels going at it for like 15 minutes. You know what I mean? It's just like, just don't stop, just bang, 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 bang. And it's just like, it's interesting. So I don't know what to think about this one, man. What's the I just hate it. I hate it so much.
Ownership is split just like the price tags and the line. So it's 16.8% on Espinoza, and then on Elliott 16.2. So it looks like the public doesn't know what to do with this either.
I might just do the fade game and just hope it doesn't hit. I don't know. Put them both yellow. You have to. At that pricing, you have to. It's just so.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
Just one more fight like I could do without on this card.
All right, the next fight's somebody you just roasted, so let's hear it.
Yeah, he was just, you know, he was the most readily available person. I was just like, oh,
yeah, you're right. I just went to him.
France. He was just in my face right there, so I just had to. But no, I like him. But this fight is green. I do like it. Both sides are green, and I will tell you why. It's one of those contrasted styles here again. I think it could be great for whoever wins. The pricing is pretty awesome too at 85 and 77. You know, pretty cut and dry here. Ruggiero is a BJJ black belt, you know, good grappler with 11 of his 15 wins coming by way of submission. Kai France, on the other hand, blue belt in jiu-jitsu, not too much offensive danger in his grappling, but really good striker, really good Muay Thai, really good kickboxer, as we've seen. So I'll say Kai is not a great finisher. And as the favorite at 8,500, you know, unfortunately, he's not a great scorer in his non-finishes. So I don't think he will make the optimal decision, which is tough. So actually, why don't you put him yellow? Why don't you put Kai yellow? Because here's the thing. I mean, he has to get a knockout, I think, to make the optimal. I really do. And I think he's going to be smart. He's a cerebral fighter. He's smart. He's probably going to use his distance. He's probably going to, you know, try to pick Ruggiero apart on the feet and just not overextend. Because if he goes too hard for the finish, he could easily walk into a level change takedown, and then he's in a world of hurt. So I'll mark him as yellow. I don't think he finishes, and he doesn't score super well outside of finishes. I will say Ruggiero is green. Like I said, really good grappler, and I mean, a little recency bias here, but we all saw what happened to Kai France against Brandon Royval. Got choked out. So very, very interesting, you know, contrast there with Ruggiero.
Bentorin at 16.8% ownership at a plus 118, which is a 46% chance to win. So this is pretty even. And then France at a 54% chance to win has a lower ownership at a 12.7% ownership. Both very, very low still, Kevin. So looks like the public is slightly agreeing with you. They're going to be favoring the underdog in terms of ownership. So
makes sense. I mean, it's one of those things. Like it's the Rivera thing again, and it's not as bad as Rivera. Don't get me wrong. Right. Kai France can do a lot better scoring than Rivera, but it's like, did I think Munoz was going to win that fight? 50-50. Do I think Ruggiero is going to win this fight? 50-50. Right. But I know that if Kai wins, he's probably not going to score well, and I know if Ruggiero wins,
his price tag's $8,500, so it's going to be hard to make the optimal, even if he does win.
Yep, you're going to have to do a lot of things right. So
for sure,
I don't see it happening. Well, I shouldn't say I don't see it happening.
You should be one of the top 6 scorers at $8,500 to make the optimal. Yes, and I don't 100%. think and you're saying he probably won't be. So
needs to knockout.
Sure.
Needs a knockout.
Sure.
But yeah. So moving on, we got Joseph Benavidez versus Askarov. Another 125er. Not that, you know, the other fights I've mentioned too, Matt, aren't awesome fights and interesting as we talked, but this is where I personally think It starts heating up.
You hyped up this card, but the first like 8, I just want to fall asleep to. Like, what's going on here?
I know. That's what I was telling you, man. It's like it starts off a little light. I like some of the fighters. I like some of a couple of the fights, but this is where it just starts getting hot. And this is why I think the public is really starting to target this area, because I'll tell you, this is for me, this is where it just, as obviously a huge MMA fan, this is where it's just it's a dream right here. But we'll start with Benavidez and Askarov to kick off that big murderer's row here. This is a good fight, man. I mean, Benavidez, really good fighter, obviously a legend in the weight class. Was one of the pioneers who started it, and he has some really impressive fights during that span, with his only losses really coming to big names, which is tough. It's hard to gauge where Benavidez is at right now, coming off of 2 bad losses to Davis and Figueiredo, but I don't know. I mean, Benavidez really doesn't lose to anyone who isn't nasty, so it's kind of tough to think like where he's at. I mean, Asgar, on the other hand, undefeated up and comer, who is coming off an impressive win over Alexander Pantoja.
Has been scoring that well.
He hasn't been. It's true, but the thing is, I mean, he's still $8,300, and that's part of the 125er effect too, which is interesting. But I mean, Asgar, you're not going to believe this. He's a really good grappler and a good wrestler who happens to come out of Dagestan. I know it never happens. But I don't understand. As a wrestling coach, I'll tell you, I don't know what they're doing over there, but I need to
something illegal is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. They just pump them out. But yeah. Anyway, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what level Benavidez is at right now. This is a plus 160 finish chance, and I get why. If you look, Matt, and this is why, like, I'm spewing facts here when I talk about like the weight classes for men and how much they matter. Okay, let's look. Let's randomly look. I know we're not gonna look too far down the line, but like look at Israel and Jan. Okay, I know those the 2 good fighters, but it's a 205-pound fight. Is it expected to finish? Sure. Santos and Rakic, is it a 205 fight? Is it expected to finish? Sure. Yes. You look, and then you look at the last 3 flyweight fights in a row. When's the last time we had 3 men's fights in a row that weren't expected to finish? Plus 130, right. Plus 150, plus 160. So this is what you're facing. And you're also facing, so then you go, okay, well, how are they going to do it in a decision? Well, they're also fighting 3 5-round fights on this card. So I don't know. It's tough. It's tough, man.
Okay. I really now I get why the ownership looks the way it does. You convinced me.
Yep. So it's starting to make sense.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird, man. I don't know. I think people are going to run those top 3 fights heavy, and it's going to be interesting everywhere else. But obviously, some of these have to make the optimal. I don't think all 3 title fights make the optimal. So let's. Let's
okay, interesting. Can't wait for that.
I really don't. But I will say this one has the lowest finish chance, and I think, like we just talked about, Askarov is not the best scorer. So I don't know. What's the ownership here?
Ownership's low, 19 and 15.7% ownership. So in those teens, it is higher on Benavidez for what it's worth, $7,900. So I guess Asgar is more leverage, but like again, it sounds like a stretch at this point.
Yeah, I think he's a good fighter. He's undefeated, but again, like Benavidez doesn't lose to bad people, so it's like not, and that doesn't mean. This is just a proving point. If Asgar beats him, he's in that club. He's a good, really, it's not a facade that he's undefeated. He's a good fighter.
And you believe he is, or he could be.
And I think he is. I mean, after I have a pretty high, opinion of Pantoja, and he just beat him. So, but again, this is going to be a test for him. So we'll see. We'll circle back there. Mark both yellow for now, man. Okay. We'll circle back.
I'm going to give you the hard bread by the end of this, by the way. So just FYI.
That's fair. And I won't fight you too hard on that. Moving on, we got Song Yadong versus Kyler Phillips.
Okay.
Song Yadong. Yeah, what'd you say to me? But
this ownership's actually interesting. Can't wait to hear this.
Really? Okay. Yep. Well, this card's stupid. I talked about. I mean, this is just such a low key sick fight too. And it's 7th from the top. I think this fight is sick. Kyler Phillips impressed me a ton with his last fight. That's all there is to it. He looked like a top 10 fighter in the world last fight. He was dominant. Do you have his last fight scoring on there?
For which one?
Kyler Phillips. Does it say
Kyler Phillips? Yes, 111. It was a TKO, right? And he landed. Landed 32 significant strikes. Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, so 110 points with the old scoring. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, he's amazing. I actually slept on him a little bit, and then I watched last fight, and I was like, wow, this kid has a pace on him.
Public agrees with you, Kevin.
What'd you say?
The public agrees with you.
Okay, we got some underdog love here.
A lot.
I will say Yadong is a good fighter. He's coming off a win against a super talented Marlon Vera. That is going to stick in my brain as much as I don't want recency bias too. I mean, to be fair, recency bias is in both my heads. One guy just beat Marlon Vera. Remember the guy who beat a very controversial win against Sugar Sean O'Malley? I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
The leg kick.
I remember that.
So he just beat Marlon Vera. Pretty impressive. But also I got the recency bias of Kyler Phillips and his awesome wins. So that's tough. My gut reaction is Phillips will easily make the optimal with his pace and finish ability if he wins. Yadong needs a finish. That is my, with his pace, looking at his numbers, his volume, I think he needs a finish.
What's the finish chance?
Plus 120.
Okay, so it's not the worst. Could be better. All right, so ownership-wise, Kevin, Phillips is sitting there at 26.5% ownership, so that is the benchmark. Very high owned. $7,400, I get it. You said if he wins, he should be in the optimal, right? Yadong, 18.3% ownership, which I'm just looking down the card, and this is the last bit of ownership that we'll see that's relatively low, and then the rest skyrockets. I just see leverage potential. I know you don't like that, but do you think you can get a finish here?
I do, Matt. I think it's a chance for a finish. I'll say this, though. This is something else to consider when we're looking at, like, the odds. What do they have Yadong's chance to win at?
Chance to win, it's 60%.
60% at 8,800. It's not that great. I mean, you look at, like, down the line, like our last
Which is why his ownership's so low, but yeah.
What was Askarov's percentage?
Askarov, for win percentage?
Win percentage.
57.
57, so pretty relatively close.
Right.
And he's $500 cheaper.
Oh, I get it. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't like him that much either, but I'm just saying, like, I get why the public's saying this. If you want to take a crap ton of Phillips and pivot with some Yadong to hedge your bets, I get that, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know, Matt. I don't know.
18.3 is very low. However, Kyler Phillips, if he does lose, is going to screw a lot of these cash lineups. I'm just saying. So, in terms of GPPs, I think Phillips is a sharp fade because even if Yadong wins, he shouldn't make the optimal. So, I think you're just canceling out two different guys here if this does go the distance.
You fade Phillips?
I think he's a sharp fade. Based on that ownership, it looks like it. It looks like he will be anyway. For GPPs. For GPPs.
But I think if he wins at 7,400, he's going to make the optimal.
Oh, no. I'm saying greenlight him altogether. Like, you need to have exposure to him. But I'm saying, like, in the single entry GPP, he could be a sharp fade for sure. Yeah, if you're looking for leverage.
I thought you were saying fade like my
no.
I thought you were saying like fade Phillips. I was like,
no.
Okay.
No, I mean, if that's the one fade that you're going to do the entire card, I mean, you can get away with it, sure.
Yeah, 100%. So what kind of ownership do we want on Yadong, you think?
I mean, you don't sound convincing, so I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to.
I know you like the leverage.
I do. 18.3%. I mean, I would go above that if you want some sort of leverage, especially at a 60% win percentage. I mean, even if he doesn't finish, he still is going to get you winning, points. So don't mind that.
Remember, some of these people are going to break the slate. It's going to happen every time. Like everything we know and all the expertise in the world, something's going to just throw everything up.
Always
Tim Elliott's
does.
going to come out and get a 15-second knockout, and we're going to be like, well, there it is.
Yep.
So
always happens.
Yep. Yeah, moving on to another fight. I'm going to be surprised, man. I think just by the way you're like prefacing this, I think I'm going to be surprised at the ownership you talk about with Dominick Cruz and Casey Kenny. I mentioned how unreal this card is, but how about Dominick Cruz on the friggin' undercard? He's never been here before. I don't think I've ever seen him not in the main or co-main. I'm baffled. I'm actually even more surprised at the fact that he's an underdog, but this is funny. They actually asked him, they were like, how do you feel about being on the undercard? He's like, I don't care. I don't have that kind of ego. And I was like, well, you do kind of have that ego. So I'd be surprised if this doesn't bum you out a bit. But I don't know. This is interesting. I love Dominick Cruz. Huge Dominick Cruz fan. And I think he's not getting enough respect in this one. As
he's definitely not.
On my buy side, at minus 135 for Casey Kenny. I think Casey Kenny's good. I get Dominick had a big layoff, with injuries. And then when he came back, he got smoked by Henry Cejudo. But it's still Dominick Cruz. Best footwork in the game. Someone who beat TJ Dillashaw still, a couple of years ago when TJ Dillashaw, right before he made his big run. I don't know. This is interesting to me. I don't know what to say here. So I'm looking at plus 185 finish chance, Matt, and I got 3 rounds to score well. That's what I'm looking at. A 3-round fight to score well at a plus 185 finish chance. So you got to assume this doesn't end in a finish. And I agree. Dominick Cruz, not a great finisher. He's kind of a cerebral fighter, very, pick apart his shots. I don't think Dominick Cruz is super viable to pick here for that reason, Matt. He's one of my favorite fighters ever.
Okay.
And I don't think he's a good pick here, even at 8,100. He's not the type of guy to lay it on you. He's too smart for that. I think Casey Kenny, who throws a ton, I like his volume. I can't imagine. Dominick Cruz is probably the hardest person to hit in MMA. I can't imagine Casey's going to throw so much volume and do this crazy takedown. So Dominick Cruz, I'm looking from a opponent perspective, a dance partner, nightmare, the worst dance partner. Can't take him down, really hard to take down, even harder to keep down. Can't land a punch because of his footwork and his head movement. And it's just like, I don't even know what, I don't know, man. I think I don't want to double red this at 8,100, but it's close for me. It's close for me.
Yeah, the ownership is very, very low on both of these. It's still higher than Song Yudong. Kenny, 20.1% ownership, and then Cruz at 15.5%. So they're still both in that GPP territory, Kevin. And it seems like the public is going to agree with you here on the finish chance.
You know what? I might just sit back and love this fight. I like both these guys. I might just sit back and
just red light it. Not worry about it.
I'm gonna red light it.
Alrighty, there's the call.
I can't believe I can't believe I'm red lighting Dominick Cruz, but just it makes no sense. Like I'm playing every scenario in my head, and I don't see a world where, I mean, I shouldn't say I don't see. It's MMA. I think Casey Kenny come out, sub him,
sure,
whatever. But more times out of 10 than not, this fight ends in a boring decision. That's just the way it is.
All right, so, you're the expert here. Moving on.
I'm taking that. And if that doesn't, I'll eat that one on the chin. That's mine. But moving on, we got a main card happening. We got another one that's just like, this is the fifth fight from the top, Matt. Stupid. Thiago Santos versus Alexander Rakic. This is crazy, man. This fight had me giddy like a schoolgirl when I saw it, Matt. I was so excited for this. This is going to be amazing, I think. I hope. Both are technical strikers. They both have grenade launchers in each hand. I think a slight technical edge does go to Rakic and slight power edge goes to Santos, but they both have both. It's not like, the huge advantage one way or the other. I was impressed with the wrestling of Rakic in his last fight. He smoked Anthony Smith pretty friggin' easily. Didn't see that really coming. I think he's the rightful favorite due to that and his previous performances. I will say Santos is an amazing pivot, though, and pay down option here for at 7,600 for obvious reasons. I mean, I know he didn't have a super good fight in his last showing, but you got to remember, this is a guy who, was a split decision against John Jones, really good 5-rounder against him. And I don't know if you've seen Thiago Santos fight, Matt. He's the one with like the Thor's hammer on his chest. This man can knock out a water buffalo with that left hand. It's ridiculous. He hits so friggin' hard. That's not his only weapon to do so. His his kicks and his knees are ridiculous as well. Oh, it's so tough. I think Rakic is going to have his hands full. But I think, I think this is a 50-50. I'm probably going 100% ownership on this or close, and then just splitting the difference, taking 50-50.
Green light all the way around. We got 26.7% for Rakic, which is above the benchmark percentage, Kevin. So he is cash viable.
That's still too low.
Oh, yeah, it's relatively low for sure. And Santos at 19.1. So I'm assuming you think that's low too.
Definitely too low.
Yeah. We're going 100% on this fight.
If you don't think Thiago Santos come out and put the friggin' lights out in like the first minute, you are out of your gourd.
Yeah.
He is such a, he has that God-given knockout power and that pace. I mean, I could see this one getting just, lighten up fast. Both guys just, I don't think that's the fight Rakic wants, and I don't blame him. No one should want that fight against Thiago Santos, but Santos might say, that's fine. I'm going to make it that fight. So it's going to be interesting.
All right, moving on. We got a good GPP.
Moving on to my low key. This might surprise you, Matt. This is probably my overall favorite fighter on the slate with Islam. Actually love him. Absolutely love him. He's AKA guy, Khabib's teammate, just one more, Dagestani wrestler that I just love. Can't wait to see him fight. I've been waiting a year and a half to see him fight. He's been, sidelined with injuries, COVID, this and the other thing. That being said, I will say if I fought Drew Dober, I'd probably score better than Islam does because he is
really not
a good score at 90.
You love boring fighters, low-key.
I do. Yeah. I do. I fall in love with the control. I think there's something like anyone can land a punch to dominate someone for 15 minutes and just be like, yeah, you're my son.
I'm not touching you. Yeah.
15 minutes. Right. Yeah. I think that's more impressive to me. Doesn't always score well. Doesn't always win. You're not going to be a fan favorite, and it doesn't always score well.
I like that.
So yeah, I don't think I like Islam at 9,400. I mean, that is so friggin' expensive. I think there's just it is such a
It's the
long
highest
shot
on the
he makes the
card.
optimal.
No, second highest. Sorry.
Second, yeah. On most cards, it would be the highest. I mean, I just think, like, in what world does he make the optimal? He's probably not going to get a finish. He could. He could. I shouldn't say he probably won't get a finish. It's not as crazy that he gets a finish. It's more crazy that he clears that price point in a decision. So if he gets a submission early, could happen. I'm not going to say it's impossible. That's why you want to yellow light him just for the submission chance. But if this goes to the decision, do not bank on it. Even with his wrestling and stuff, he's not someone who's going to run a takedown clinic. He's going to take you down once, keep you down, load up some punches, and just stay there. You know.
Okay, so how does he win?
Yeah, that's it. Remember, you know, those people. Who's that person we were looking at the other day? We were looking at the numbers, and he was like on an 8-fight win streak or something, and we were like,
yeah,
so
I forget his name.
Does he win? Was it Bilal Muhammad or something?
Yeah, I think he pays the other wrestler, the other fighter, to not do anything. That's what happens.
It's like we're like, huh? He landed 60 strikes with no takedowns, and every fight, and he wins every single time. Like,
yeah.
Huh. But yeah. So I will say Dober. I don't actually agree with this line, Matt. And you said that the line is actually shifting in favor of Islam. When I wrote this, it was at -360. You said it's at -380 now, I believe.
Yeah, -380. Yep.
So it's shifting in favor of Islam, which I actually don't agree with. I love this guy. He's been in, like I said, almost a 2-year layoff, 1.5-year layoff. Dober is pretty damn good. Hits like a truck, has some good wrestling himself. Probably not as good as Islam's, but that's interesting to me. I'm not going to say Dober's, I don't know. You can put him yellow. I mean, I don't know. I think he's live. I mean, he hits pretty damn hard, Matt. Dober hits hard. All
right, so the ownership on Islam is going to be 22.6%, Kevin, and on Dober it's going to be 13%. So very low ownership all the way around, and then the next three are going to be so dang high compared to that. So what's your take on this fight overall in terms of ownership?
I mean, I think they're both live in a weird way, so you got to mark them yellow, but it's just like, it's a little bit perplexing because Islam is going to have to really, really get a finish in a big way to make optimal, and Dober's obviously just gonna have to win, which is an uphill battle to begin with.
All right, Kevin, we're in the final three. Here it is.
The 3 title fights, Matt. I can't wait. So starting off with my favorite target one, Peter Yan versus Al-Jameen Sterling. This one has the best chance to make the optimal. This fight has the best chance to make the optimal out of any on the card, in my opinion. It's a lower weight fight, which is actually good, especially with the new scoring for 5 rounds. I think these guys the winner should have a ton of volume. Both guys carry a high pace, and this one, actually, in my opinion, Matt, has stack potential in cash. It's a -150 finish chance, but I could easily see it going the distance. And if it does, these guys could both score very well. I have a very high opinion of Yan. He hits so friggin' hard at the weight class, and his boxing is par none. He's so crisp on his feet, Matt. That being said, I have a high opinion of Aljo. I think not quite as high as Yan, but it's getting pretty close. I think Al-Jameen is, absolutely unbelievable. In his last fight, Matt, he decimated Corey Sandhagen, who I think is a very, very good fighter. We just watched Corey Sandhagen put the lights out on Frankie Edgar in like 28 seconds. So it was crazy. And anybody listening to this video, I think it's free on YouTube with the UFC. You should go watch Al-Jameen's fight with Corey Sandhagen. He deletes him. He just took out the number 2 ranked fighter in the world and made him look, sweet as Kool-Aid. He just absolutely just dusted him, ran through him. So I will probably rock this one 60% Yan and 40% Al-Jameen, but I will go 100% ownership here, Matt.
Okay. So you know what the deal is whenever it's this close of a line, whoever's the cheapest is going to be higher owned, and that's exactly the case in Sterling. 40% ownership, but Yan is still very high owned at 36.5% ownership. So both of these fighters very high owned for good reason, like you alluded to, and this is just a clear-cut ownership bump here from the other fights that we've been talking about, Kevin.
Yeah, they deserve it. I mean, I will say, like, I get it, and I think Al-Jameen is an amazing wrestler, an amazing he's a very good wrestler and an amazing counter to Peter Yan. But I've been nothing but, I can't say I haven't been nothing but impressed with Al-Jameen, but I've been nothing but like super impressed with Yan. So I'm surprised it's that split. This isn't your average, like, one guy's 84, 178 split it, because of that. But I think Yan should carry a little more respect than that, even though it's a close line. I mean, I think Sterling is amazing. I don't know, man. Yan just has that power. If he can, and he has good takedown defense. If he leaves this fight standing, I would be shocked. I I'm gonna say this: Al-Jameen can't win this fight on his feet. He can't.
Okay.
That being said, if he takes it down, Jan is in a lot of trouble. I just think Jan is tough to, take down and keep down. But Al-Jameen takes people's backs, man, like, in milliseconds. So you never know. You never know. I do like this fight. I think it has stack potential.
All right, stack potential from this one, but not the next one, right?
Not the next one. No stack potential.
Let's hear
Amanda
it.
Nunes. I will say, Matt, I got an interesting take on cash games here. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay.
Or maybe in the Patreon. I'll tell the boys and girls in there too. But I have an interesting stance for that. But and I think it's gonna work. But that being said, we got Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson. My goodness. What is Amanda Nunes' latest?
It was at -1,000, so it's actually dropped, Kevin. So
mine was at -1100 on Bovada. What was yours?
Well, I was looking at Bovada earlier before we did the live stream. That was -1,000. So did it go up since we last spoke?
No, it was -1100. So mine's
yeah. So it has dropped a little bit. Come on, what's the drop from 1100 down to 1,000? What's that really gonna do?
Is that what it's at, 1,000 right now?
Yeah, it's at 1,000.
That's crazy. So unbeliable.
We've seen bigger upsets, Kevin.
We have.
It was about this spread, I think.
Don't give me your contrarian ideas right now. Not against Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes is, in my opinion, the safest money in MMA. I say it every time. Will she clear her price point in GPPs? That I don't know. With the new scoring, she absolutely could. If she drags this fight out, Matt, and just wallops her, but doesn't finish for 5 rounds, just like she did in her last fight with Felicia Spencer, where she scored stupid well in a 5-round decision. She had like 125 significant strikes and 6 takedowns. That wasn't even with the new scoring system, and she scored super highly. So I think the new scoring system makes her ceiling even higher. I mean, it's the stratosphere with her. Even at that stupid price tag, Matt, Amanda Nunes could clear it. You know what I mean? She could break it. She could get 160 points. No way she doesn't have that potential.
Especially in a 5-rounder.
Especially in a 5-rounder. I do like her a little more in cash, but
yeah,
if you're doing multiple lineups, you'll probably want some of her. Yeah. Now to talk about her opponent.
You're not even going to talk about it?
No.
Okay. 57.8% ownership on Nunes, which is the highest, as expected. I can't throw $1 on Megan Anderson over the weekend. You won't let me even do that? It's a waste of $1.
I will say Amanda Nunes has looked a little more human. Her and Shevchenko, both who I consider like.
It wasn't a serious question. You don't have to. Okay, go ahead.
No, but it's true. But I mean, I do want to say, like, I saw Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes both look. They had human moments, which they usually don't in their last fights, and especially Nunes. She's had human moments, especially against like Germaine Duraname. Granted, Germaine is, in my opinion, a super good fighter. So one of my favorite fighters in the female division. So I will say that's not surprising. Megan Anderson's big. I'll say that. She's big. She hits hard and she's big. I'm going to leave it at that.
She scores well too.
She still gets, well, I think that's why. I think she knocks people out and puts hands on
if her 7% chance to win actually does happen, she will make the optimal. Just saying. That's the one thing I will say.
The thing is, it's a 7% chance from a statistical standpoint. It's not in real life. It's less than that. It just is.
Well,
it is.
Yeah,
it just is. But and not that it can't happen. And again, like even if it's a 3% chance, okay. So what's that? A 1 in 33 chance it happens? That's not crazy. But I mean, that's weirder things have happened. But Amanda Nunes consumes this girl again 19 out of 20 times at least. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know.
I agree. I'm just, I'm trying. I really am trying here, Kevin. So
Megan Anderson's big and hits hard. I'll give her that. She's big and she's a real, there's a featherweight fight. She hits hard. So I mean,
she either scores a lot or she scores nothing at all, is what I've gathered. So, and this is probably going to be one of those fights where she scores nothing at all. All right, Kevin.
Yeah, that's probably more likely than not. That's why I like stack potential here is like, what if Megan Anderson just, I mean, again, she's a big featherweight, but at the same time, it's what if she doesn't do anything? Like she just get consumed again, just drown.
Which is what should happen.
Or that is Amanda Nunes. So.
All right, Kevin. Last one. You ready for it?
Last one. Big fight. Main event. Banger. Absolute banger. Awesome way to close out this fire UFC 259 card. Izzy's good. Izzy's great. Has big knockout power. Beautiful technique. Striking's par none, Matt. In my opinion, probably the most technical striker
Yeah.
From flyweight to heavyweight. So in the UFC, probably the most technical striker. He's crazy. It's funny. I give him credit. He was talking about in the pre-fight presser. He was like, yeah, I need work on my grappling still and my striking still. I'm like, do you? It's like, your striking's pretty damn good, bro. He's humble like that. Well, sometimes he's humble. Sometimes he's just not at all. But
yeah, I was going to say the last fight I watched, he didn't sound humble at all. But
he also hated Costa, which is true. But yeah, I know he's not as humble. He's not super humble. But that was a humbling, sentence for him. I was surprised he said that. But I think he's got that, down to a science. But I think with the knockout potential he has, being a 5-rounder, you have to include him in your GPP player pool alongside cash. That said, I think there's potential, Matt, on this card that Izzy doesn't make the optimal. I don't think he's a lock. I don't think you lock him in.
You don't think he's a lock? Okay.
Nope. I think he takes a ton of them, but I don't think he's a lock. I think because Jan poses a huge threat. And the thing is, I don't think Izzy is going to overextend to try and put Jan away.
For sure, and I can agree with that.
He's going to do what he does, and Izzy wins. He's going to do what it takes to win, and that means I think he's going to try to get out of this fight alive with 2 belts. He'll only be the 5th or 6th person ever to win 2 belts, like 2 different weight classes. And if that's his approach, Matt, which it easily could be, I don't blame him at all, and neither should you if you ever seen the way Jan hits people. But I just think that makes him a very tough lock for optimal in a decision,
for sure,
even in 5 rounds. You know what I mean?
So it's almost opposite. It's if the favorite wins here, he shouldn't score well, but if the underdog wins here, he's going to score very well.
Yeah, if Jan wins, and
if he gets a hold of him,
going to Jan, I actually give him, I think, more of a puncher's chance than most people do. I'm going to include him in my player pool, my love list for punts. I think Jan, people aren't giving enough credit. Israel weighed in, I think, at like 200 pounds today, but the other day he was 193, so he's probably fat 200.
Holy.
Probably 8 to get up there. Jan is cutting from whatever he's cutting from, 230, whatever he is.
So he's
a
in shape,
friggin' dude. So Izzy's going to be like,
I was looking at that in our thumbnail. I was like, he looks fat, but he doesn't. It's like,
no, he's just a thick dude. He's like a bear.
Yeah.
He's like a bear. He's like your boy. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
He's like, he's just,
so not like TJ.
Like
Got it.
Not like TJ.
Okay.
TJ is a cub. TJ's a little cub. But shout out to Cub TJ. Yeah, Jan, I think, is going to pose some problems for him. I think he's just, like I say, he's big. I think Izzy's gonna walk in the cage. I mean, he can try as hard as he wants, but he's gonna be a buck. I think that 200 pounds was a facade. I think he ate a Big Mac and a large fry just to weigh 200. I think he's gonna be like $195. Jan's gonna be walking in the cage 220, 225 at least.
Crazy.
And I think he's gonna push Izzy against the fence. He's going to make his life hard. I think he's going to try to get this to the ground. People sleep on Jan's grappling too. I think no one really thinks that Jan is because he knocked out Dominick Cruz. People are going to be like, oh, he's going to try to sleep him. He's just a heavy puncher. People don't understand. Jan is a very good black belt, a very good black belt. He has a ton of submissions. He has more submissions than knockouts. Most people don't know that. He has more submissions than knockouts. He just happens to be starching everyone like Corey Anderson, Luke Rockhold, Dominick Reyes lately. So everyone's like, oh, knockout artist. Yeah, well, what about his 9 submissions before that? You know what I mean? So I think there's a distinct advantage in the grappling for him. If he can use his size, push Izzy up against the fence, force a takedown. I don't care how much more technical Izzy is. If he has someone 30 pounds heavier than him and stronger than him, pushing him against the fence and taking him down, it's going to be a tough night. It's going to be a tough night. So I could see this going a couple different ways. Or Izzy just dances around him, picks him apart, chops his legs out, makes it hard for him to get taken down, picks him apart with his striking, and wins that way. But I see both in the realm of possibility, Matt.
You're making it sound like Jan is a favorite here, so now I'm convinced. Is Jan going to win this thing?
I think people sleep on him.
Yeah.
I think people sleep on him.
No, and I mean, the public is pretty much too. Israel here at 30.6% ownership, so it was obviously in that cash range. I mean, how do you not put the main event in the cash range? But Jan, 22.6% ownership, so it's not bad. It's not bad. So people are still giving them hope. But I mean, in terms of ownership, I think these both are getting overlooked, Kevin. Yep. For a main event, that is. I've never seen a main event this low in my entire life. However many slates we've covered, probably about 20 now. So very, very low. I think good for GPP.
20 slates, Matt.
Have we covered about 20? Maybe a little bit less.
Well, I got a E drive full of about 100.
Yeah, we need to clean out our computers now. That's for sure.
100. Yeah, I was gonna say 100 documents that will say otherwise. But
so you're saying it's more? It definitely could be. Definitely could be. All right, Kevin, let's bring it all home here. We're approaching like an hour on this video, so core, who's it going to be?
Core, you got to throw Nunes in there.
Okay.
Man Nunes.
Not gonna argue with that.
I'm gonna throw Izzy in there too.
Okay. After you just roast him, got it.
Yeah, I know. Whenever I say something, especially when I lead one, I'm like, Izzy's good, Izzy's great. Like, I'm like, this comes off as like I'm already like just not on the Izzy train, which is just not the case.
Right.
It's just not the case. I love Israel. It's like I say, he's my favorite fighter.
He's become my favorite to watch. So
he's so fun, dude. He's so fun. So yeah, those are my two core GPPs. Jan and Sterling, obviously, this fight has an awesome chance to make the optimal. Probably my best bet to do so on this huge and difficult slate. Medic, all of his wins by way of finish, and Cruz has been finished a fair bit. Ulberg, good power and striking, could carry low ownership due to inexperience. Santos and Rakic, just unreal power from both guys, and I think someone goes to bed here. And you said that this was not as crazy ownership as I thought it would be.
Right.
So I do like Santos and Rakic. What was it? Both in like the mid
20s, 26.7 and 19.1. So
yeah, that's weird. That's weird. Punts, Kennedy has power. We still don't know how good Ulberg actually is. And then Jan, who I just talked about, man's a mule, one punch power, like you read about, and big size advantage. And I think that's going to be an issue if he can get a hold of Izzy, put him against Cage, and drag him, down.
All right, that is it. Just like that. Guys, if you haven't watched our MMA content, please do so in this video. Please subscribe to this channel. We have NBA All-Star Weekend coming out. We're also going to be pumping out some content for that tomorrow. We also have some pack openings coming out this weekend, so we will be pumping out content. We're going to be covering everything from NASCAR to esports this weekend, MMA obviously, so feel free to jump on that Patreon train. It did restart this month, so now is the time to sign up if you guys want to grab the full value. With all that being said, guys, have a great rest of your weekend, and let's cash.